Hi everyone, before we start, let me first show you my build number since the Game Genie app might be different depending on the version of the ROG UI. This video is created against ROG Phone 5's ROG UI of Android 11 with security patch of March 5, 2021 and build number www_18.0840.2103.26. Also, if you are watching this, you are probably already familiar with the AirTriggers, so this video will not show my fingers tapping on the AirTriggers anymore and instead show the actual on-screen recording of the phone for a clearer and bigger look of what I'm doing in the phone. Now that all of those are clear, let's open Call of Duty Mobile as our sample game and get started. Game Genie is an assistant app of ROG Phone 5. You can open it directly as an overlay from the game by swiping from the left side of the screen. At the top, you can go to the setting of the Game Genie. From here, you can choose which apps should the Game Genie be embedded to. By default, all the game apps are enabled, but you can customize that. You can also turn on and off the starting animation of the Game Genie. You can reorder the buttons within the Game Genie overlay screen, which is a great customization option. You can also select the information that you want to see if you toggle the real-time info during a game. I'll show you how to toggle this on and off later. We also have a temperature unit option here for Fahrenheit and Celsius. I use Celsius, of course. Navigation blocking is also one of the toggle options of Game Genie, and from here you can select what to disable when you turn it on. There's also a touch lock options when your game is idle for a certain amount of time, which you can customize here. And yes, this is also one of the toggles in the Game Genie overlay screen. And lastly, the about info of the app, which nobody cares. From the Game Genie overlay, you can also open the Armoury Crate, which is a sort of the game central application of the phone, where you can visit the official site of the game, see the recordings per game, and the profiles for each game. Profiles are basically the settings you've set per game from the Game Genie app. You can also set the performance options, system lighting, aero cooler settings, and other accessory settings here, and access the ROG social media, feature games that supports high refresh rates, and your ASUS ROG profile. From the left side of the Game Genie, you can adjust the screen brightness by sliding the bar up and down. You can also see some real-time info like the frame per second or FPS, the temperature, CPU speed, and X mode toggle. In the middle part, you can turn on or off the no alerts, no calls, and lock brightness toggles, which are self-explanatory. When turned on, alerts and calls will be disabled and brightness cannot be adjusted. The real-time info shows the information you selected in the real-time info settings that I showed earlier. When turned on, you can see the information by default at the bottom of the screen, but you can drag it anywhere on the screen so that it will not cover or disturb your game controls and view. Navigation blocking blocks all the gesture navigations that you turned on from the navigation blocking settings that we visited earlier. This avoids accidental touch that triggers phone gestures of going back or going from the home screen while playing, especially when you are in-game. But as a friendly reminder, in case you are playing secretly from your office cubicle or maybe late night avoiding your wife to see you, this setting could be a liability since you cannot instantly go to the home screen of your phone when you get caught. Consider yourself warned. The regular charging toggle will only be available if your phone is plugged in. That's why it is disabled now. Let me just plug it into a power source. I'll plug it to my laptop here to enable it. There we go. From here, you can choose between regular or bypass charging. Everyone knows what the regular charging is, where the phone batteries are being juiced up. Bypass charging, on the other hand, as the name implies, bypass the batteries and instead, the phone uses the charger's power source directly to run the phone. Since the phone batteries are not being used, its charge will not decrease and there's also no stress on the batteries even if you play hard while being plugged into a charger. This is a great way of preserving the battery life and it is highly recommended on this situation. Mark clip is a quick screen recording function. I'm already recording my screen now, so that's why this is disabled and I won't be able to demo this right now. It's basically just a short recording. It will add a button in the screen which when tapped will record the screen 5, 10, 20 or 30 seconds length of short recording depending on the settings you've made. The refresh rate toggle goes around the 4 screen refresh rate settings between automatic, 60, 120, and 144 Hz. I usually set that to the highest 144 Hz. Scout mode is like a cheat code in games like COD Mobile. It inverts the color of the screen and the effect is you can easily spot your enemies, which always comes with a highlighted red tag on their character. It's probably illegal to use this on esports. When you turn on the data only toggle, it disables your SIM's network except for the data connection. This is the DND mode from calls, but it could be fatal if your wife is the one calling and this is turned on. Consider yourself warned again. Okay, now moving on to the right side of the game Genie. The topmost is speed up. When you tap that, it will optimize your RAM by clearing unwanted and background apps and such. Let me open a game here for the next options. Let's just go on a training mode so I won't get murdered while doing this demo. For the AirTriggers, you'll have 3 tabs here. The first is the ultrasonic buttons, which refers to the 2 shoulder capacitive buttons on the side of the phone. You can enable and disable it. You can also go to the settings where you can set some toggles like the finger resting option, for example. In the tap setting, you can set the level of force you want to apply for the ultrasonic buttons to trigger it. You can also set the ultrasonic buttons to be a 2-button setup, making it a total of 4 buttons. Personally, I think the capacitive area is too small for my fingers for this setup, so I never use it. If you want the ultrasonic triggers to function with a swipe or a slide, you can also do that here. These options look like a downgrade in comparison with the button tapping functions for me, but it's still nice to have more options here. Going back to the ultrasonic button settings, when enabled, you will see 2 round buttons in the screen. The red R corresponds to the right ultrasonic button, while the blue L is for the left. You can then drag these 2 buttons anywhere on the screen. Then tapping the physical ultrasonic buttons will trigger a tap to where this round L and R screen buttons are located. I like the right button to be my fire trigger and then the left button to be my reload trigger. You can see the screen buttons turn white when I tap the corresponding physical shoulder button from the phone. Let's try it. You can see here when I press the physical ultrasonic buttons, it shows the corresponding buttons in the screen and emulates a tap on the screen. Now for the motion control, you can add up to 10 controls here I think, since there are 10 available motion controls. Each control also corresponds to a tap in a specific area that you select. Just like the ultrasonic button, you'll also have a visual button here which you can drag anywhere in the screen. For the tilt forward, I'd like it to be on the jump button of the game. Let's test that. Since I'm just showing a screen recording, you cannot see that I'm tilting my phone forward. You just have to trust me on that. You can also see the yellow map button in the screen appear every time I tilt forward. Let's try adding one more button for tilt backward. Then let's assign it to the crouch control. Now let's test it. See, the tilt forward and tilt backward is now my jump and crouch control. You can see the yellow overlay button on the screen appear every time I tilt forward or backward. Along with the ultrasonic button mappings for fire and reload, I don't need to touch the screen anymore to perform these 4 controls within the game. Nice, right? The cooler buttons here are for the Aero Active Cooler 5 buttons. I already sold my Aero Active Cooler so I cannot demo this right now, but it's basically just the same steps as the ultrasonic button mappings. If you're wondering why I sold my Aero Active Cooler, it's because personally, I don't think it's effective enough. There's no significant temperature change when I'm using it while it consumes the phone's batteries. And to use it, you are basically forced to strip your phone out of any protective case. So I choose to use a protective case rather than a cooler that doesn't really bring enough value. Moving on to the macro, Just like in MS Excel, this basically lets you record the steps you do, then lets you replay all those steps. Let's try adding one. You just need to tap the record to start, then do everything that you want to be recorded. Let's do a fire, reload, and jumping combo, for example. Stop the recording when done, then save. Let's rename this as fire, reload, jump. From the list of your macros, you can select one, then start. Until you tap the macro or do something in the screen, the active macro will just loop endlessly. I don't see much of a use case of macro here in COD mobile game, but I do see its value for games like Tekken, for example. You can flood your enemy with a batch of combo attacks without actually doing anything on the screen. From the macro list, you can select one, then preview, edit, or delete them if you want. The quick control lets you add a button in the screen which you can map to any of the preset list of actions here, which also includes macro. Let's try and select the macro we created earlier, for example. You can place the button anywhere in the screen. Now, if you tap this button, it will perform the macro. Tapping on the button again will stop it. The record here is basically the common screen recording on Android phones. But recording here will group your video under the game you recorded it with, which you can view easily from the Armoury Crate where recordings are organized per game. Haptic audio is where haptics is triggered in sync with the sound. The implementation here is you'll need to map the haptic audio to an area in the screen. When that area is tapped, it will enable the haptic audio for that. For COD Mobile, the best place to put this is on the fire button area. When you fire, each sound of gunfire will produce a corresponding haptic reaction and you'll feel every fire you take. I'll obviously not be able to show this on the video, but it really feels immersive. One of the things you need to trust me on again. Crosshair is another one of those cheat code type of features here. It gives you an overlay of your own crosshair, which you can choose a style, color, size, and opacity. This is very helpful on a shooter type of games like COD Mobile here. Lock touch is basically locking your screen. This is very useful in case your boss caught you playing while you're on work but don't want to exit the game yet. You can enable this and put your phone in your pocket quickly without messing up your current game. Search lets you do a quick Google search while staying on the game. I think this is for cases like if you forgot some cheat codes or something. The default result list here is related to the game you're currently in. Lastly, the best thing about all of this is that all of the changes and settings you've made here will only be saved to the current game's profile. In this case, my COD mobile game. All the changes here, like the air trigger mappings and such, will not affect any of your other games, which have their own individual profile too. That's it for this ROG Phone 5 Game Genie comprehensive walkthrough. I'm still planning to do a separate camera test video for ROG Phone 5 and a full review video as well. Watch out for that. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you love it, please consider subscribing to the channel. Nila Zuj for watching. Nova Air.